Tosh Dile everyone, I'm Sakina Butt and welcome to Tibet This Week, a weekly feature in English that tells you about this week's news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's look at the headlines first. Cultural revolution has failed. Brute forces can never subdue people's belief. His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Chinese Buddhist. CTA President launches year-long Thank You India campaign 2018. CTA President begins three-nation tour to Switzerland, Belgium and France. China orders Tibetan pilgrims to return immediately. European Parliament adopts resolution calling for immediate and unconditional release of Tashi Wangchuk and Tibetan monk Chuki. The Tibet Museum announces an open competition worth Indian rupees 1 lakh for the Tibetan People's Memorial Project. On Sunday this week, His Holiness the Dalai Lama started his teachings to devotees from mainland China on Diamond Katha Sutra in Bodh Gaya. His Holiness said that although the Cultural Revolution unleashed a decade of violent distortion of religion and religious institutions in China, today we can tell that it is a total failure. His Holiness further emphasized that external forces cannot subdue the 1,000-year-old spiritual heritage of the Chinese people, and today in China, not only Buddhism but other traditions are being revived, and therefore people's faith are only growing. His Holiness said that Buddhism has been part of the cultural heritage of the Chinese people as the Sanskrit tradition flourished in China before it came to Tibet from India, and praised the earnest efforts to preserve it. On Thursday last week, President of the Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Lobsang Singye, launched the year-long Thank You India campaign at a press conference at the Press Club of India in New Delhi, the national capital. In his address, President Dr. Singye said that the year 2018 is significant since 31st March 2018 will mark the beginning of the 60th year of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's coming to India. His Holiness the Dalai Lama entered India on 31st March 1959 through Arunachal Pradesh, followed by 80,000 Tibetans.
So it's been 60 years, sadly, that Tibet has remained under the occupation of People's Republic of China, and 60 years of political repression, 60 years of economic marginalization, and 60 years of cultural assimilation, environmental destruction, population transfer. So on the one hand, it's a sad and tragic chapter of Tibet's history. Having said that, since coming to exile in the last 60 years, because of the support of the international community, but particularly this great country, India, Tibetans are still standing in the soil of this great land.
Secretary Sunam Norbu Thakpo said,
"We are in India for the last 60 years, and because of the support and help of the government of India and the people of India, Tibetans are able to preserve and promote our religion, culture, and identity. We were able to stand our own feet because of the support of the government and people of India, which is being destroyed in India, it's being preserved, and from India, it's being spread all over the world. Another important thing is the basic freedom struggle of the Tibetan people is also based on non-violence and ahimsa, which was taught to us by the great leader of India, Mahatma Gandhi.
Secretary Dardan Sharling explained that the Thank You India program will be executed both on the ground and on the virtual space to publicly express gratitude to both the Indian government and the people. She also outlined some of the programs of the year-long campaign, which include a Prayer for India, interfaith prayer meeting, and initiative to feed the hungry cover the cold, mass tree plantation drive, mass participation in India's Yoga Day, cleanliness drive, etc. She further said that all the activities will also be featured on social media with Thank You India 2018. Around 40 media persons from leading newspapers, magazines, agencies and TV channels including The Times of India, Tribune, PTI, ANI, DD News, ETV, NDTV, etc. took part in the press conference. On Friday last week, CTA President Dr. Singh embarked on a three-nation tour to Switzerland, Belgium and France. Dr. Lobsang Singh called on Jan-Peter Peumans, the Speaker of the Flemish Parliament, and Belgian parliamentarian Sabine de Bethune. At the meeting, Dr. Singh lobbied for parliamentary support in resolving the issue of Tibet through the middle way approach, which is the official policy of CTA, aiming to seek genuine autonomy within the framework of the Constitution of People's Republic of China. Dr. Singh raised concerns about the present critical human rights situation in Tibet and also of the deteriorating environment health of Tibet and Tibetan Plateau. Dr. Singh attended the Tibet Interest Group meeting at the European Parliament and thanked all the members of the Parliament who voted in favor of the resolution passed recently calling for the immediate and unconditional release of the Tibetan monk Chögyam and language rights advocate Tashi Wangchuk. Briefing the parliamentarians on the middle way approach, 550 vision and the workings of the Tibetan democracy in exile, Dr. Singh shared the success of the Tibetan diaspora in the preservation of the Tibetan identity and how the third generation of Tibetans growing in exile have exceeded the second generation in terms of the understanding of the Tibetan language. In light of growing presence of China in Europe, Dr. Singh highlighted how the Belt and Road Initiative very much replicates the same pattern of China's invasion of Tibet that saw military invasion under one road disguised in the name of development, peace and prosperity. Beginning last week, the Chinese authorities have ordered all Tibetan pilgrims who have travelled to Bodh Gaya to attend the ongoing teachings of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in India and Nepal to return to Tibet by a certain deadline, failing which they would face consequences. According to the news reports, more than 2,000 Tibetans, including many elderly from Tibet, have arrived in Bodh Gaya. Chinese authorities have summoned Tibetans back to Tibet midway through the teachings despite issuing Chinese passports quite recently. It is also reported that the local government in Tahu County required all Tibetans from the area to return within 4 days of the notice issued on 12th January, while the Lithang authorities set the deadline as 19th January. China made similar orders last year in January when thousands of Tibetans attending the Kala Chakra teachings by His Holiness in Bodh Gaya were told to return. Upon return, the Tibetans faced confiscation of their passports. A few were even torn and destroyed, amid the ban imposed by the Chinese government in participating in the major Buddhist event. The European Parliament has once again come out strongly on the cases of human rights in China, including the recent case of Tashi Wangchuk, a language rights advocate who was detained on 27 January 2016 after appearing in a New York Times video advocating the right of Tibetans to learn and to study in their mother tongue, and Tibetan monk Chögyam, who was jailed for celebrating the birthday of exiled spiritual leader the Dalai Lama. For the main issue of Tibet, the European Parliament, through its urgency resolution of 18 January, has reiterated its call on the Chinese government to engage with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and his representatives, and expresses its support for a peaceful resolution of the issue of Tibet through dialogue and negotiations with a view to granting Tibet genuine autonomy within the framework of the Chinese Constitution. In its 28 clauses in relation to the issues of human rights with China, 7 clauses deal with issues exclusively relating to Tibet. The Tibet Museum of the Department of Information and International Relations, Central Tibetan Administration, has announced an open call for a unique project, the Tibetan People's Memorial. The Tibetan People's Memorial will occupy a central position in the new Tibet Museum, which is due to open in 2018 in Ganjen Keshong. The museum will contain the memory of the 1.2 million Tibetans who died because of the Chinese occupation in Tibet. The main objective is to preserve their memories and pay tribute to their sacrifices. The Tibet Museum now seeks concept briefs and design for this permanent installation from both Tibetans and non-Tibetans. The selected concept will receive a price of 1 lakh Indian rupees. The competition will open till March 10, 2018. So much for this week. See you next time. Have a great weekend.